Well, the first thing is that manufacturing is the primary driver of research and development. Almost all research and development spending are originated in manufacturing industries. That's the first one. The second one is that it is the primary component of international trade. So if you don't have manufacturing, basically you have a problem maintaining a trade surplus over long periods of time. And the third one is that it generates huge employment in other sectors. So each manufacturing job generates between 2 and 5 other jobs. So if you lose one manufacturing job, you lose between 2 and 5 other jobs.
Jobs is that fundamental word that raises its head in economic discussions, political discussions and social discussions.
Well, of course it does. You know, people need employment, people need to have meaningful activities to do, so it's important that an economy has the ability to provide employment opportunities to a large a portion as possible of the citizens of that jurisdiction.
In South Australia, times have changed. This city, for example, built its expansion in the 60s, 70s and 80s in the northern and southern suburbs around motor vehicle manufacturing plant in the south, which was Mitsubishi, and Holden in the north and also in the west. Those times have now gone. Most of those factories are empty. What is the challenge here to rebuild or rediscover that job creator?
Well, all industries, no matter what it is, has a life cycle. You know, they are born, they grow, they mature, they decline, and they die. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, there are very few people who build, hand plows nowadays. They are gone since quite some time ago. So what you have to do is to ensure that you continuously have a renewal and/or a transformation. So, for example, in the automotive industry, that industry is incredibly skillful. It has been forced by its tough environment to become very, very efficient, very cost conscious, very quality conscious, and very good at developing in time. These are skills that can be used in other industries. So when you look at these things, you want to try to ensure that the employment in the supply chain, so the sub-suppliers to the OEMs, that employment is not declining, and that means you need to assist those firms, encourage them and inform them that they should reduce their dependency on the automotive side and find employment and business opportunities in other supply chain. And I don't really mind whether that's in white goods industries or whether it's mobile phone industries or whether it's medical devices, whatever it is. And as you do that, you reduce the risk of something happening to your firm when possibly the OEM no longer will buy your product.
So whose role is it to find that solution? For example, at the moment, the number of manufacturing jobs or the contribution of that sector to our economy has dropped from about 18% to 11%. Is that government? Is that business? Is it capital investors? Or a combination?
Well, look, the responsibility for the future of a given firm always rests with that firm's management. Nobody else can tell a firm what to do, least of all government. Government does not have the ability to pick winners, and most occasions it tries to do that, it fails miserably. But there is also some issues around what government can do and what the investors can do. Government, for example, can assist by providing a map over the landscape for firms. If you're a small firm, you may not know what other domains exist where your capabilities could be applied, and you may not have the resources to find out because you are small. And that means that for government there is an information provision opportunity. And that information is mostly around providing them incentive to say, look, if you don't change, you're in trouble. So that's an information provision. The other one is to say that here is a map, have a look at it and see if you find something where you think you could do well. So there is those type of issues. Now, once a firm has decided to move, then of course it moves into a new domain and it deals with things it has never done before. And in so doing, it's essential that it develops capability. It needs proof of concept, it needs lead customers. And in those areas, government can frequently play a role. It can provide opportunities through procurement, for example, to buy things that didn't previously exist, that enables the government to get something that they can use, at the same time as a company can get a reference and the ability to develop capabilities. So government has a role in facilitation and enabling in this scenario, but it's not to pick the domains where the companies should go. Now, capital investors, on the other hand, must accept that if you do these things, there is an investment requirement before you get a return, and sometimes the return is uncertain. But that's a risk-return scenario. No risk, no return. And you have to accept that sometimes you have to take the risk to get the return.
Now, the last couple of days you've been up in Port Augusta
Yep.
talking to small to medium manufacturing enterprises.
Oh, some big ones too.
Yeah. What have you picked up there?
Well, the issues are very much the same as they are anywhere else. But in addition, of course, there is both an opportunity and an issue surrounding the large resource projects that we can see. These resource projects can be huge opportunities, but they can also be huge risks for an economic development. If you manage to be part of it, it's fantastic. If it passes you by, then of course it's not so good. So what you're feeling here is a bit of an ambivalence, I think, around these things. On the one hand, an opportunity, on the other hand, a risk. And you picked up that, I think, clearer the closer you get to the geographical domain of the resource projects.
Economically, I think they often refer to a theory called Dutch disease,
yes.
Which relates to an experience in the 70s where resources had the impact of a major surge in one part of the Netherlands economy, and at the same time made the other parts of the economy non-competitive. We're seeing elements of that here, particularly in retail, trade and services sectors. How do we deal with that now?
Well, I think the first one is the issue around understanding Dutch disease. Well, by the way, the name was given by an Australian economist to the Dutch phenomena in that time. Basically, what it says is the economy is made up of three components. It's a booming resource sector, it's a traded services, or traded goods, so think manufacturing, and then it's a non-traded, think services of different types. And what it says is that when this booming resource sector take off, the first thing that happens is that it needs employment. It needs more people to work for them. And of course, the easiest place to take these skilled people from is manufacturing. So this is very, very visible, but actually from an economic standpoint, it really doesn't matter because the resource sector is not people intensive, it's not labor intensive, it's capital intensive. So it's visible, but it's not important. The second thing that happens is that the resource sector becomes very wealthy, and the companies make a lot of money, they invest a lot, the people make money, and they spend the money. This put a high pressure on the services sector. They need more transportation, more hairdressing, more food, more entertainment, whatever it may be. And that of course means that this sector will grow, the services sector will grow, and that will demand a lot of labor. So this is a huge flow of labor from the manufacturing sector to this sector because they pay better, they may have better working conditions, whatever it may be. So what you then see is a deindustrialization. So manufacturing gets put under pressure because it loses its capability to have employees. That's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens is that you're pumping all this money in, So that means that if you're in the service sector, you can raise your prices, and you will see that already. Prices are going up for these things, and you can do that because you're not competing internationally. These are non-traded things generally, so you can up your price for hairdressing. That's all right. It doesn't matter, what they do in China or whatever in that sense, because you're not going to go to China to cut your hair in these things. So the prices go up there, but of course in manufacturing you can't raise your prices because your products are priced on an international market. So already there you see that you're losing an opportunity to up your price in manufacturing whilst you can increase your price in manufacturing. So that's what happened on these three components. In parallel with that, all this money gets pumped into the economy means that, simplistically expressed, you get more money in per existing unit of Australian dollar. That means there is more value backing this Australian dollar, which means that the exchange rate goes up. So the Australian dollar gets more purchasing power. And you see that you buy more US dollars for an Australian dollar than you did before. The problem, of course, is if you're exporting, this means you are stuffed.
Bang goes the wine industry.
Yes, that's right. You're stuffed because obviously if you have very low margins, they are quickly eaten up. So if your economy is based on huge numbers of low margin firms, for example, a normal triangle where margin increases up, then you will see very rapidly a very large number of firms going under in the manufacturing sector because they can't absorb that exchange rate increase. On the other hand, if you had an economy which was upside down triangle where most firms were high value adding and very few of them were low value adding with low margins, then this wouldn't be the case. So what we also have is a structural problem in the economy. But what this means is that manufacturing will have a double whammy. On the one hand, it will not be able to have the people or the opportunity to increase its prices. On the other hand, the value of the Australian dollar means as margins are being eaten up. So these are the problems. You have a real pressure on the manufacturing sector.